Okay, guys, welcome back. So in this section, we are going to be, configuring our domain controller and also prepare the other nodes and join them to the domain. Okay. And of course, if you have not seen the previous video, you want to go and check that out. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so that you can get other tips. All right, let's just go jump straight into it and prepare our domain controller. All right, the first thing we're gonna do, I'm already, right now I'm yep, there you go. This is my domain controller server. So I wanna change the name. That's the first thing I like to do. So click on local server. We need to change this computer name to DC. So click on it and click on change. I don't want this, so I want it to be DC for domain controller. All right, after that, I will hit OK. Of course, it's gonna restart my system and I'm completely fine with that. So I'll hit OK and close and restart. I'll be right back as soon as the server is back up. My system is super fast, so it's gonna be back up, but I'll just pause for a second and we'll resume back. Oh, that was fast before I could even pause this back. So I'm gonna provide my password one more time. Still loading. So while that is loading, the first thing we're going to do here is to do some configuration. And one of the things we're going to be doing would be to turn off the IE enhancement, enhanced security configuration. And also, we're going to change some other features that you would not do this in the enterprise environment. Remember, this is not for the pros. This is just for your local lab. At work, this may not necessarily be your job as a DBA. I want to assume I'm talking to DBAs. So let's get going. So let's click on local server. So the first thing we want to do, want to turn off the IE enhanced security configuration. So we'll click on it right here, IE enhanced security configuration. So we'll click on it, turn it off. We don't need it right now. Okay. So after that is done, we want to go back to our VM manager and right click on the desired node. Of course, in this case is a domain controller, and select settings, and then we'll be able to go to our network switch and change it to default switch and apply it. And then we'll come back to the VM and say yes, so that our VM can see the network. Okay, so let's flip back to our Hyper-V manager. I'm still here. So I'll right click on the node that I want and I go to settings. Let's click here. I want to change this from the external network. I want to change it to default. So I'll click on that, select default switch and hit apply and hit OK. Okay, so we have to do something here real quick. So let's go back to DC domain controller. So this time around, we'll have to say yes now. So let's say hit yes. And then let's flip back to our domain controller. I'm sorry, to our virtual manager and switch it back to internal one more time. So settings, change this from default to internal network, apply, and OK. All right. So we're going to flip back to the virtual machine. So let's go here to the DC. Remember, we're still working on the DC. So right about now, we want to turn off the window firewall, window defender firewall. Please don't do this in your enterprise environment. Remember, we're just trying to prevent any kind of issues while we are using our local server for our lab. Okay, so want to turn this off. So click on the domain network, turn it off, go backward, turn it off for private, turn it off, go back, do the same thing to public, turn it off. All right, yeah, all turned off. All right, hit cancel here. All right, the next thing we want to do here is to enable our remote desktop. Is right here is disabled by default so that we can next time just use RDP. Say okay, I'm fine with that. Apply and okay. Okay, all right. So the next thing we want to do here is to configure our Ethernet. Ethernet is right here. Okay. And before you do this, make sure you have your IP addresses in place. You can use, I'm actually using the pool of IP address of 192, of course, to 255. All right, so if you right click on this, you go to properties, go to IPv4, click on it, then click on properties. This is where you provide your IP addresses, but before it becomes active, you have to select the option that says use the following IP address. So click on it, and then we can make sure you, before doing this, you have your IP address in place before you start doing this. All right. So I already have mine, so I'm just going to provide the IP address. So I'll say 192. Oops, it's not typing. 192.168.0. I will use 3 for my DC. The subnet should populate by default. That's fine. And for my default gateway, I'm gonna use 2. So 192.168.0.2. My preferred DNS server, the preferred DNS server has to be the same IP address as the main domain controller IP address. So I'm going to repeat the same IP address that I have here. Okay. 192.168.0.3. Okay. All right. I'm just going to hit OK. And that is done. And I'm going to close this out. So make sure that this changes to the IP address. It may not change immediately. You want to refresh it here. Click on refresh. There you go. So the IP address for the domain controller is there. And of course, the remote desktop is enabled. The window defender firewall is turned off. And of course, our IE is turned off as well. Okay. All right. Let's move to the next step. The next step. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is to add Active Directory feature and DNS server to the domain controller. How do you do that? You go to Manage and you add roles and features right here. Click on it and go Next. Yep, role-based or feature-based installation. I'm fine with that. Go Next. Everything looks good here. These are my DC that I want to install it. Go Next. So here I'm looking for Active Directory domain services. Click on it, add features. And then the next one you want to select is DNS server. Add, go Next. So for now, that's all we need for now. We need anything else, we'll come back to it later. But for now, that's all we need. So go Next, go Next, go Next. You can select this. If you select this, you will not be informed that your system will be restarted. So I like to be in control. So I'll say install. If a restart is needed or is required, I will restart the server. So while it's installing, I'm gonna pause the video and we'll be right back. All right, as you can see, the installation is is successful. So let's go ahead and click in close. Once that is done, as you can see, there is a notification here. So you want to go here immediately, click on it and select the option here that says promote the server to a domain controller. That's what we really want to do. So click on it. All right, so right here, this is where we define our forest. And of course, basically, this is where we specify the domain name that we want. So we'll select the option that says add new forest, and then you can provide your domain name. So in my case, I will say mpittech.com, mpittech.com. I go next. Wait for it. Did I click next? That I did. Oh, okay. I did not. My bad. Okay, it's loading. Let's wait for it. We're going to be prompted to enter a password. Be able to do that. Let's wait for it. All right, so let's provide the password. Oh, it's not allowing me, so I'll just wait for it. Still loading here. Okay, I think it's ready to go. All right. I think we are fine. On the next page, we might get a warning. That's completely okay. Please safely ignored. It said a delegation for this DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. It's just a warning. I'm fine with that. Say next. All right, so my domain is accepted. All right, I'll go next. Here, I'll leave everything at the default. I'll go next and confirm everything looks good. Go next. There's a warning here saying if you click install, the server automatically reboot at the end of the promotion operation. I'm fine with that. But it's not ready. It's still doing prerequisite check. Let's wait for it. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm just gonna pause and wait for it. Oh, okay, there you go. We're good. All right, so all prerequisite checks, all correct prerequisite checks passed successfully. Click install to begin installation. So let's go ahead and do that. Just gonna pause the video and we'll be right back. All right, so I'm getting a message saying that you're about to be signed out and my system is restarting. The restart usually happens really quick, so let's give it some time. All right, welcome back. So at this point, I can actually connect using my remote desktop if I want. You know what? Let's do that. I use my remote desktop. I already have DC here, even though it's a different DC, but should be able to connect, hopefully. Uh, Actually, it opened on my secondary monitor. Come on. All right, there you go. So I'm connected using my remote desktop connection. Let's wait for the server manager to load. All right, so at this point, what we need to do, we need to add users. We need to add users into this. So it's still loading. Let's give it some time. We need to add users and permission. Looks like it's done. All right, so we need to add users and permission. So let's go to do that. Go to Tools and go to Active Directory Users and Computers. Select that. Just wait for it. Come on. There you go. So now we have the MPIT tech domain that we created. So click on it. If I open it, I should see users here. If you right click and say new user. So at this point, we just want to create a user. Let's call this service account. May not be a very good name, but just so you get the gist of it. Service, call this one account. And the login name is one word. Call it service account. Okay, let's go next. I don't want user to change password in the next login because it's my private lab. I can say password never expires. Let's go here and type the password. Okay, hit next and finish. That's not all. I want to create another user. Then we can grant permission to it at once. So let's do that. So I click, create a new user. So this one we'll call it cluster admin. So I call this cluster. Call this guy admin. And of course, one word, cluster admin. Okay, let's go next. Type the password. Password never expire. Please don't do this at work. Let's go next. I think there's one more account I need to create. Service accounts created. Cluster admin. I think that's it. So the important account that I need. Okay, all right. So let's go and grant permissions to the users that we just created. The first one was service account. It's right here. So you can right click on it. Go to properties. Let's do that again. So the account we just created is service account. The other one was called domain admin. I think it's this one right here. Okay, all right, let's do this again. Properties, account. That's not what I'm looking for. Probably cluster admin. No. It's not giving me all the information I need. I need to check the views and go to advanced features. Sometimes that happens if you don't see the views that you're looking for. So if I right click again and view the properties, I should see more information. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, all right, so select member of and let's hit add. So the first thing we're going to search for, we want to check for, say, let's say domain and domain admin. Select domain admin. Okay, and click OK. Apply. Don't say okay yet. Let's go back and add another account, another permission rather. Let's click on add. Let's say remote. Start remote. to check for remote desktop users. Click OK, click OK, and apply. Again, don't say OK yet. One more. This time around, we're gonna type administrators. Administrator. Check. Administrators already there. That's what I want. So apply. All right. So at this point, before we hit the final OK, we want to give it some permissions. Okay, everything looks good. So let's go ahead and hit OK. All right. I'd like to do the same thing on the other account that I created. I think it was called cluster admin. Right click, go to properties, the same thing, member of, click on add. Call this one, doesn't matter in any order. So remote check, one desktop users. Okay, apply. Add another one, call this one administrator. The name right there. The last one should be domain. Already selected domain user. So we have domain, we have remote administrators. Domain, check names, domain admin. Okay. Do I have it double? Domain admin, domain users. Yep, domain admins. All right, different. Okay. And say okay. All right, that's it. So let's move to the next step. Okay, just a quick one. I like to check the DNS and just to make sure that the DC has the IP address that we've assigned to it. So go to DC, so you double click on DC and you go to forward lookup zone and double click on your domain. This is my DC in my A record. That is the right IP address and it is static IP address, so it's not going to change. All right, that looks good. Okay, let's move to the next step. All right, so we have been preparing the domain controller. So right about now, we need to prepare the nodes, all the nodes that will be part of this network, part of this AG. Okay, so let's minimize this one. Before I do that, just confirm other things that we've done here. Change the computer name is there. We turn off the IE. Remote desktop enabled. We configure the Ethernet. All right, that looks good. So let's go. Let's start with node 1. Here is node 1. The first thing first, we want to turn off the IE just like we did before. Turn this off. Turn this off. Click OK. All right, and then let's flip back to the virtual machine manager. Now we need to work on node 1. All right, so right click on it and go to settings. We're going to do the same thing that we did on the domain controller. Click on network adapter. So we change this to default. And click on apply, then OK. I'm going to flip back to the node, to the VM one more time, and let's wait for the blue screen to come up, and we'll say yes. All right, and then let's flip back to our virtual machine manager. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to change it back to internal. Go to settings, to network adapter. change it back to internal network, apply, and okay. All right, that's done. And at this point, we're gonna go back to the VM, and then I'm gonna go back to the VM and turn off the Windows firewalls for the domain, of course, for the private, the public, just everything we did on the VM, on the domain controller. All right, let's do that. Put it back. Okay, all right, that is off. Window Defender firewall. I'm gonna turn it off. Please don't do this at work. This is just setting up. I'm a DBA, so generally this is not my role or our role as DBAs. But of course, if you're trying to set up a private lab, you need to learn those things and know how to do it. Okay. All right. They're all turned off. I like it. I want to enable the remote desktop. Okay with that. Apply. Okay. And then, of course, just like we did before, we want to configure the Ethernet. Click on it. Right click on this guy. Go to properties. Look for IPv4 and select properties. And of course, use the following IP addresses. All right, so I'm going to give this a unique IP. I already have mine, not this one. I already have my IP address. Yep, I do. Okay, all right, so I know I've used call this one, come on. Trying to type and this guy's not typing. Let's do it again. All right, there you go. 192.168.0. I have up to, I've used 2, I've used 3. For node 1, I will use 4. The subnet will populate. And for default gateway, it has to be the same as the one on the DC, on the domain controller. Please take note of that. 192. I'm sorry. 168.0.2. Be remember the default gateway for the domain controller was this, so it has to be the same. And then the preferred DNS server has to be the same DNS server, the same IP for the domain controller. Okay, so I'm going to use whatever I had on my domain controller. I remember it was 192.168.0.3, I believe. 3, yep. The 3 for my domain controller. Yep, that's what we had as our IP address for the DC. So go ahead and hit OK and close this guy and close this guy. Give it a few seconds. This guy should change. If it doesn't, hit the refresh button right here, and there you go. It's another important part that we didn't do. I like to do it right here. I want to change this name and change it to AG01. Change this computer name. I will call it AG01. So let's do something a little different right here. So you go to member of, it's a member of a domain that already exists, and that domain is called mpittech.com. Okay, all right, so hit OK. It's going to prompt us to provide credentials. All right, I will call this username. So here I will just type administrator. Then provide the password. Okay. We should see welcome to domain mpittech.com. I'm fine with that. That is what we expect. Yeah, it's gonna restart our server. We're okay with that as well. So we close. Restart now, that's okay. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing for our AG Note 2. Okay, so while this guy is starting, let's go to AG Note 2 and do that. Oh, this came back so fast. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna connect using remote desktop. So the name is the same. I will just hit AG Note 1 and connect to it. And once it's connected, I will disconnect this guy. You know what? I can do that now. Take it out. All right. Don't ask me next time. I trust this dude. Okay. Everything looks good. In the meantime, I want to go configure the 2. Let's do that. Let's minimize this. Let's go to AG Note 2. AG Note 2. Do the same thing. Go to local server. First thing first, we want to turn off the IE. Off. Okay. All right, and then want to go back to the VM manager and change, select on the node, of course, change the virtual switch to default. Do that. Node 2, right click on it, go to settings, go to network adapter, change this to default, click apply, and okay. Flip back to the VM again. Let's wait for the blue screen. Oh, that's not a point. There you go. Say yes, and let's flip back to our virtual machine manager and change it back to internal. Change that back to internal network, apply, and okay. All right, so so let's go back to the VM and now change some of the things that we changed before. Let's start with the firewall. Just click on it. This should be familiar now. Same thing that we've done before. Go back, do it to the private network, turn it off, go back, public network, turn it off, go back. Everything looks good. And X out. Enable your remote desktop because I like to connect using my remote desktop instead of coming here. So okay that, apply, and okay. Okay, all right, the last thing we're gonna do here is to configure our Ethernet for this particular node. So click on it, right click here, go to properties and look for IPv4, click on it and say properties and select use the following IP address. Just click on it and then we start here. Oops. Just provide it 192.168.0. I think this should be 5 because my node 1 was 4. Okay, click on the subnet, it should populate, and then remember the default gateway has to be the same default gateway that we had on our domain controller. So you remember it was 2 default gateway and then with 2. So 192.168.0.2. All right, then the preferred DNS server has to be the same as the domain controller. So let's do that 192.168.0.3. That's what our IP address for the domain controller is. Okay, everything looks good to me. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Where is my mouse? Come on, man. There you go. X out from there. Can refresh this if you want to see the changes that have been made. All right, I think everything looks good. So we have configured our domain controller. We've configured our node 1 and node 2. What else? So the next step would be to change the computer name here. So let's do that. Let's click on it. Hit change. We want to call this AG node 2. AG node 2. It's going to be a domain, member of domain. Type the name of the domain, mpittech.com. All right, hit OK. Call this administrator. Administrator, then provide the password. Okay. All right, so that looks good. So hit OK. We should say welcome, and after that, we should see a little error or warning, not error. So you simply, you can simply ignore that. I'm not seeing that yet. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes it doesn't show up. Okay, all right, so we're good. All right, so it's gonna restart our server, and we are fine with that. So hit close, restart. That's okay. Let's wait for it. All right, so let's flip back to our node 1. Oh, it's already here. So at this point, like I did before, I can also use the remote desktop connection here to connect to my node 2. I trust this guy, so yes. So the next thing we're gonna do is to add failover cluster feature to our nodes. In no particular order, doesn't matter. Close this guy, but I want to start with node 2. I'm sorry, with my node 1. Okay, so if we go to manage, add roles and features, this is my node 1. I want to make sure, yep, on my AG node 1. Okay, so go next, go next. That looks good. Just want to add features. Should be on the second page. Look for failover. Failover, where are you? F. I saw it. Where are my glasses? There you go, right here. Add features. Say next, and install. It's okay, you can restart if need be. Install. I'm going to do the same to our second node. Let's go back to node 2 and add available cluster features. Go next. Go next. It looks good. Go next. Should be on this next page. Look for failover clustering feature. Add features. Go next. And restart if you need to. I'm okay with that. Okay. All right. I think our servers are up. As you can see one of them here. All right. So I can just double click here and connect to them. I want it large. Connect. You know what? I will use my I'm sorry, my RDP connection. Let's go. All right. Still loading. Wait for it. Just to verify what we have done, just to make sure that, okay, installation started. It's still installing. Okay, let's connect to, okay, installation succeeded. Good. All right, so at this point, I like to just ping the domain controller just to make sure I can connect to the domain controller from here. I'll just ping it, ping DC. All right, sweet, looks good. Okay, I would also like to ping AG Note 2. Sweet, looks good. All right, okay. I think everything looks good there. Just want to make sure that my Note 2, I know it's up and running, just need it to be up here. So I will go to my remote desktop and connect to Note 2. All right, that's our AG Note 2. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to validate the cluster. So to validate the cluster, you can use any node, any of the nodes, but I would just recommend we use node 1. So I'm on my AG node 1. So to check out our cluster, you go to Tools, and you see Failover Cluster Manager. Okay, as you can see, our cluster is here. All right, so we're going to validate the cluster. So to validate the cluster, you select this option that says validate configuration. Okay, so click on validate configuration. Go next. So this is where we provide the name for our cluster. So I can call this one AG cluster, or yeah, that's fine, because I'm gonna also create another cluster for traditional available cluster. So I'll call this AG cluster, or you know what, call it Windows Server available cluster. Uh, dash AG. Okay. Oh, actually, this is not for this. So this point, we need to provide the names of the nodes that will be part of this cluster. Okay. So let's go ahead and give it, call the first one AG node 1. Add. All right. Second one is AG node 2. Add. Okay. Looks good. Then, all right, so we have provided the names of the nodes that will be part of this cluster. We can go ahead and hit next. Yeah, leave the recommended. All right, go next and select anything, and you will begin the validation. All right. I don't know how long it would take to validate. Usually it shouldn't take more than a minute or a couple of minutes. So I will just pause the video and we'll come back once it's done validating. All right, that took about a couple of minutes. Um, so everything looks good except for warning, and I'm fine with that. And of course, if you want to start your cluster creation immediately after this, you want to select this option that says create the cluster now using the validated node. Okay, I selected that and say finish. It should launch a new wizard immediately. Here we go. All right, so we go next. So this is where we provide the cluster name. Okay, so I will call this Windows Server Failover Cluster -AG. And I have to give it a unique IP address. So let me check my IP pool and see what is available. I think I have used 4, I've used 5. I can use 6 for this one. So let me give it 6. Where's my mouse? So 192.168.0.6. Okay, hit next. All right, so here you would want to unselect this option that says add all eligible storage to the cluster. You will need this if you are setting up or configuring traditional failover cluster. We are not setting up traditional failover cluster. This is Windows Server Failover Cluster for always on setup. So I'm going to unselect this and I will go next. Let's go for it. Okay, that was fast. It's complete. Let's go ahead and say finish. So our failover cluster, Windows Server Failover cluster has been created. So if you go here, click on that node. Let's check the nodes. As you can see, we have AG node 1 and AG node 2, and they are both healthy. Assigned vote, we have 2, one for node 1 and one for node 2. Current vote right now. So we need to create a quorum because this is equal. So if it's equal like this, you would need a quorum to be able to vote. Okay, and if you have a 4 node, you will still need, if this were to be 3 cluster or 3 nodes, maybe there would have been no need for me to create a quorum. But in a situation where I have 2, I have to create a witness. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, let's jump straight into that. I know it's making this video a little longer, but it's okay. Just to cover this, then let's get to the save point, then we can end it and continue in another session. All right, so let's flip back to our domain controller. I'm going to minimize this, and we look for DC. So what are we going to do here? We want to create a folder for our quorum witness. So this PC, open this. So this is my C drive. Let's create a new folder, and I will call this folder quorum witness. Oops. Quorum witness. Now we have to make this folder a shared folder. All right, and how we need to do that? Want to right click on this folder and go to properties, go to sharing, hit share, and hit share. And hit done. I'm gonna go back one more time. I need to give certain permissions that I I feel is needed for this to function properly. So we'll go back to security. Then, so at this point, we need to give it full access. So we need to come here and say edit. We need to add, first of all, our cluster. The name of it is Windows Server Failover Cluster. I think that's AG. Let's check the name. Go here, the computer object. So select computer object and location, it's fine. Okay, check names again. Looks good. Hit OK. Want to give it full access. Full. Apply. Don't hit OK yet because we need to do the same thing for node 1 and node 2. Okay, so hit add again and call this AG node 1. Check the name. Looks good. Okay. Give it full control. Apply. Add again. AG node 2. Check the name. Okay. Ground full control. Apply. And then finally, you can say okay. And then we can close out of this. Okay. Oh, by the way, we need to copy the path. We're gonna need it. So let's go back here, copy this path. You will need it. I'll just copy it and put it somewhere safe. Put it somewhere safe. Okay, all right, I've pasted that. Okay, so we close out of this. The next thing we're gonna do is to go back. We want to configure our quorum. That's what we need to do next. So we need to flip back to our node 1 to configure our cluster quorum. Get this guy out of here. To do that, we already have a Failover cluster manager up here. So to do that, we need to click on the cluster itself, right click on it, and then go to more action. Then you will see option that says configure cluster quorum settings. Click on this. All right, so welcome page. Just click next. For this configuration, we want to configure quorum witness. So we'll select the middle one and go next. Want to configure a file share witness. So select configure a file share witness. You have option here to configure a cloud witness if you want. Configure a disk witness if you want. When you're setting up, say, traditional Failover cluster, you want to do that. So hit next. So this is where you provide a path. Remember, I copied the path. I'm just gonna paste it right there. That is the path that I copied. So you need to do that too. So click next. Click next again. All right, and then click finish. As simple as that. It's already showing up here. It's online. If you check the cluster here, the witness is already there. Everything looks good. So far we have prepared our domain controller, prepared our node 1, our node 2. We created a file share. We configured a cluster, and then of course added a witness to our cluster. Okay. All right, so let's check the note again, just to make sure that the voting bits is here. So we have our quorum here, so now it's equal. So we have 1. The quorum that we just created is right here. Before, if you remember, this was 0, now it's 1. Okay, so everything looks good. Roles, there's nothing on the roles because we have not installed SQL Server yet. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to partition the drives on node 1 and node 2 for best practice, and then install SQL and configure our availability group. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna have to end this video here, but remember to subscribe to our channel so that you can get more videos. But I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we partition our drives and install SQL Server and then configure availability group. I hope this helps. See you in the next video.